Okay, let's make a start. So today I'm going to be talking about perfect captions at scale with AI and natural captions technology. Thank you all for joining. Just some housekeeping before I start. This webinar is being recorded. We will share it following the event. If you've got any questions, and we welcome questions, please do add them into the Q&A box as we go or at the end of the session, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. First up, I'd better introduce myself. I'm Tom Bridges. I'm the founder and CEO here at Caption Hub, and it's my pleasure to be talking to you today. For those of you who don't know us, Caption Hub is a collaborative tool for multilingual subtitling and voiceover. And whether this is live or VOD, we handle the complete gamut. And we are absolutely focused on creating the best possible subtitling platform for you and for your audiences. Okay, let's dive into the presentation itself. So I've got two videos. On the left is one from YouTube, and on the right is one from Caption Hub. So let's play these.
What is the International Space Station? This is the International Space Station. This is an orbiting outpost that is humanity's first permanent home away from home. It was built over the course of a decade by 15 different countries and 5 space agencies. On board, the crew lives in these cylindrical sections. Together, they're about the size of a 5-bedroom house that houses 6 people. This right here is the Canada arm, which is a robotic arm that lives outside.
Okay, there we go. I think you get the idea. In many respects, it hasn't done a bad job, but hopefully by the end of the session, you'll agree with me that we can do better. Over here, this is the Caption Hub output.
What is the International Space Station? This is the International Space Station. This is an orbiting outpost that is humanity's first permanent home away from home. It was built over the course of a decade by 15 different countries and 5 space agencies. On board, the crew lives in these cylindrical sections. Together, they're about the size of a 5-bedroom house that houses 6 people. This right here is the Canada arm, which is a robotic arm that lives outside. It's about 50 feet.
There you go. I think that's enough to give you a flavor of what's going on. So I think that the key thrust of this presentation is that it's very easy to do bad captioning. It's very easy to create a poor experience using AI. And this is true no matter how good the speech recognition is, which sort of slightly sounds counterintuitive. But let's see if we can find some examples. So there are two sides to accuracy in speech recognition. One is just being able to recognize the words, which most speech recognition engines are pretty good at. What they're far less good at is understanding the context. So I don't know if anyone here picked up on this caption on the YouTube video, the Canada arm. Suddenly that's what it sounds like, but actually the Canada arm is it's a trademark. Canada arm is one word, and the Caption Hub speech recognition picked that up and marked that correctly. The other sort of and the most obvious thing, I think, was that with the YouTube transcription, we're seeing it on a word by word basis, and for lots of us that might not seem like an issue, but I'm going to show you why in fact it really is. Even if you don't have something that's word by word transcription, if you've got, let's say, a speech recognition engine that's just filling up a bucket, an available container full of words, that will still lead to very, very poor retention rates. And I'll explain shortly why that is. And this is, this is a screenshot from the YouTube video. This is much harder to decode. You can get the sense of it, but it's much harder to decode. And also, one of the things when we're leveraging just pure speech recognition, that's great, but translating it and transforming it into broadcast formats is really hard. Let's talk about the accuracy side of things. Um, One thing that I think is becoming more and more evident in this age of AI is that context is king. The AI is great. AI is very important now, but we need to help it along the way. And so we need to give it tools in order to do this. And these tools can be things like custom dictionaries. So, a custom dictionary you might be familiar with. It's a list of words you define in advance that bias the speech recognition towards the words in that list. And so this might be people's names, it might be product names, it might be place names, it might be some jargon or something that's hard to pronounce that speech recognition might not have come across before. But the more context we can give the speech recognition, the better it's likely to be able to do. And of course, the transcription isn't the only thing that goes into generating subtitles. The whole translation process is really important too. So, term bases, quite similar to custom dictionaries, but instead of telling the transcription engine how to transcribe something, we're telling the translation engine how to translate something, or not to translate it. If you take the idea of a brand name, for instance, let's say the brand is Amazon at Home, and Amazon at Home needs to be Amazon at Home, but in the French language. You could construct a term base that has those do not translate terms, and that will help AI or your human subtitlers understand how to go ahead and create these. We have voiceover dictionaries as well. So voiceover dictionary is very similar to custom dictionaries. If your final output is in synthetic voice, you can you can tell your text to speech engine exactly how you'd like something to be pronounced, which is very important again in the sense of proprietary terms. Speaker libraries is something that's becoming more and more important. Or certainly, it's an interesting new area. Um, with speaker libraries, you can actually capture a voice print of a given speaker, and you can um, you're then telling your AI not just what's being said, but who's saying it. And that's a really interesting way of, first of all, enriching your output, and if there's a transcript or something like that. But you can also even start to influence translation and how translation happens based on who's saying what. Substitution dictionaries is another thing that you might want to consider. So substitution dictionaries, this is effectively a search and replace. So so custom dictionaries, you're biasing the output. Substitution dictionaries is a blunter tool in lots of respects. So you're saying extract this word and replace it with this, um, which can be useful, and particularly in a live subtitling environment. And lastly, if we're able to give our processes translation memory, then they can draw on the history of everything that an organization might have translated in the past, or at least committed to that translation memory. So if you combine all of these things, then what you'll end up with is dramatically improved accuracy. Moving on. Word by word transcription increases cognitive load. Um, this is something that actually we feel quite passionate about at Caption Hub. We quite often have people asking us to add in um, uh, sort of social media style captions where you've got things popping on word by word by word. And there are a ton of studies, and in fact, the opinion of the deaf and hard of hearing community that there's a really visceral reaction against this kind of thing because it's not accessible. Word by word transcription increases cognitive load. And what's the effect of increasing cognitive load? Why does this matter? The key thing is that poor captions force viewers to decode text instead of absorbing content. And of course, if you've got a higher cognitive load, then you're going to have more disengagement and lower retention. One of the funny things about captions is that actually you only want a tiny bit of the viewer's attention to be focused on the captions. You want the rest of it focused on the screen, on the message, on everything else that's being said. We want captions to support what the viewer's doing, but not to dominate their attention, because otherwise the message will be swamped. And if you've got poor quality captions, then you're shifting them back into the active decoding mode. And in one study, subtitle attention rose to 81.5% with poor quality captions. So all of this, we are we're trying to do we're trying to create the best quality captions in order to sort of have the lowest impact on our viewers' attention. And in lots of respects, this is a question of craft. How can we craft our subtitles to do this? And there are over 100 studies showing that captioning improves comprehension, attention, and memory, even. Here we go. Here's just a few of them. We can share this at the end of the session. The recording will be available. But these are just some that are cherry picked that underscore what I've just been telling you. Okay, so what's the solution? Here at Caption Hub, we've developed a technology we call Natural Captions. Natural Captions has been evolving over the years, and Natural Captions has a simple aim. We're trying to match human subtitler levels of output. And Natural Captions is applied in Caption Hub both for VOD and for live subtitle streams. What's it doing? Well, first up, we're obeying a style guide. Over here, I've dropped in our style guide for English. We are taking the raw output of speech recognition and dividing it up into syntactic chunks that make sense to an audience. And so we are using laws, and this is, I say laws, these are natural language rules that govern how we're splitting up the raw output from speech recognition. And this is punctuation based, this is grammar based. In some respects, it's based off of cuts in the footage. There's a huge amount going on. But the net result is that you're getting captions that are very close to what a human subtitler would have created. And you can see some of these lines here sort of really seem quite subjective, but we can code for these. So you see here at the end, in the case of caption 2 lines, the shorter line cannot be less than 50% of the longer line. That's to just do with aesthetics. But even aesthetics help make those captions more readable. I'm sure lots of you are aware that but captions quite often need to obey a technical standard. And whether that technical standard is something to do with broadcast, so EBU, STL, or SCC, or something like that, or they need to obey a standard because you've got one video that's portrait and you've got one video that's landscape. Quite often, you'll need control over the number of characters per line, for instance. But these settings might be different for different languages. So you need a system as well that can handle overrides. This screenshot is from Caption Hub. These are the default settings that we enable for our customers. And you can see here that these APAC languages have got a different setup and different reading speeds. But you've got complete control over these. Quite often, the output of style guides and the output of the technical standards can work against each other. And so one of the things that Natural Captions will do is it'll carry on iterating until both requirements are satisfied. And it's a true multilingual solution. I'm just showing you what this looks like for English, um, but um, natural captions works at both the transcription level and at the translation level. And that's really important because it saves a huge amount of work and time for transcriptionists and for linguists. So natural captions then becomes the source for our downstream languages. Um, it's hopefully obvious that poor segmentation in the source would compound across every translation, so we can avoid that. The timing and reading speed constraints must survive the translation process. And what I was saying earlier, all languages are different. Each language should have its own segmentation. And I'll show you how this works in practice in a second. So summing up here from the sort of theory part of my talk, there's a really big gap between captions existing, do I have captions, and captions working. And it's very easy to make captions exist right now. You can plug in an AI that's off the shelf and you can say, oh, here we go. I'm transcribing some text and I'm putting it on a screen. There we go, captions done. And our argument is that without a deeper and more sophisticated understanding of it, you can do that, but the chances are that you will really seriously affect the comprehensibility of those captions to your audience. And so if communication is important, then you need solutions that govern the raw output of AI and present it to a human in a way that a human can easily understand and digest. So good captions should, first of all, be accurate, but secondly, more importantly, context aware. They should follow syntactic phrase boundaries, punctuation, and so on, ideally via defined style guides. They need to adhere to a specification if necessary. And again, ideally, you should calibrate your reading speed to audience and context. And as I said earlier, this is table stakes for English or for your original language, but it's really important, I think, to be able to apply the same or similar rules and logic across multiple different languages. Okay, let's see it in action. Here we go. This is Caption Hub. This might be familiar to some of you. So I've got a video here that we are going to transcribe and translate. I'm just going to show you what this looks like for VOD, and I'm just going to show you on one language. It's important to note that with Caption Hub, one of our key things, our key selling points is the fact you can scale this. And so we can automate all of these processes. Before I do that, let's just have a quick look at the setup. So if I go into my team settings, and I have a look at caption settings, we've got these language profiles. So lots of different language profiles. We've got some built-in ones. So we can have Netflix style guide, for instance. We can have Caption Hub portraits. We can have 608 captions. I'm just going to use the Caption Hub defaults. And if I go, and those Caption Hub defaults are that's numbers of characters per line, numbers of lines, or gaps between captions, frame gaps between captions, and so on and so on. If I look at our languages, so you've already seen the English one. Caption Hub supports over 400 languages now. Here we go. This is what an English one looks like. But if we look at a French one, let's say, it looks quite different. But we're still able to codify rules via this. And in fact, in Caption Hub, if you're a Caption Hub customer at the moment, try it out. You can test the style guides and put in some unstructured text and see how Caption Hub goes ahead and formats the content as captions. Let's go ahead and create some transcriptions. So I'm going to go ahead, use auto transcribe. I'm not going to use a custom dictionary in this case, just so you can see the raw output of the transcription. And off it goes. And so behind the scenes, what we're doing is we've extracted the audio from this video. We're sending the audio to the speech recognition engine. Speech recognition engine will send us back a huge document with words and timing and confidence scores and speaker information and so on and so forth. And we are turning that behind the scenes in Caption Hub into those human readable subtitles. When we uploaded the video as well, we've scanned it for edits. And I'll show you what this looks like. Yeah. Got an issue with the video itself. Never mind. You can see over here what we've done um, with the captions. We've got some nicely formatted captions here. If I play, I don't guess I'm going to play now. There's something funny going on with my network. Not sure what's going on here, but you can see the output of this. This kind of change is exactly what what a custom dictionary would fix. And just scanning down, you can see that these are really nicely formatted. And if I go back into into our translations tab, we can add a translation. Let's say German, and let's do French. So if we look at German, you can see that Caption Hub has actually gone ahead and increased the count of captions. German, as you probably know, is a longer language, so to speak, than English is. And so we're taking this source and we're turning it into these two captions. And we're doing so in a way that, again, this is obeying a style guide. So each language is getting the best possible experience based off of the language itself. So with French, for instance, there have just been a couple of places where we've gone off and we've lengthened those, or we've turned one caption into two, one source caption into two. I'm not quite sure what's gone on with my video. It was working just now. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Sorry, I'm not. I'm going to go back to. There we go. And go back to our presentation. So that is natural captions in action. One of the things I wasn't able to show you was how we represent cuts in the footage in the Caption Hub timeline. But that's a really useful functionality. You don't want, for instance, a caption flashing on a couple of frames before a cut in the footage. And Caption Hub automatically takes that into account, and will, depending on rules, you can make sure that it's your new caption comes in precisely on the cut in the footage. And you can also specify frame gaps between captions and so on and so forth. Things that might be very important if you're delivering subtitles for Netflix, for instance. I'm going to draw this to an end now. Thank you very, very much for your time. And let's have a look at the Q&A. So we've got some questions. One of the questions is, you mentioned automation. How do I automate for scale? If I have 50 videos, I need captioned. So I alluded to this briefly in my talk. Caption Hub has got a feature called imaginatively automation. And what automation does is it's it does two things. What one side of it is, effectively animate or automating clicking around in the user interface. So what I showed you was going through, um, I was clicking on a button to transcribe something and clicking on a button to translate something. With automation, you can define all of that in advance. So you can say, um, I would like you to transcribe these captions with this transcription engine and this custom dictionary, and I would like you then um, to translate it into these languages, and I'd like you to use uh, this machine translation engine for these languages and this one for these languages, and I'd like you to apply this profile to these languages and so on and so forth. You can be really, really granular about it. The other really interesting thing about automation, though, is you can define a video source and a video destination from outside of Caption Hub. Um, we had one customer a couple of years ago now who wanted to automate the ingest of their back catalogue. And they had over 3,000 videos on a video platform. In this case, I believe it was Brightcove. And they were able to set Caption Hub in such a way that whenever they added a tag to their videos in Brightcove, so entirely outside of Caption Hub, Caption Hub would scan their video repository for this tag, and when this tag was matched, the video would be brought into Caption Hub. And uh, in this case, someone else had done the transcription, so we just pulled in the original captions, but then set up a really sophisticated machine translation workflow. There was on-screen text, there was actual captions. We set up separate pipelines for all of these. It all ran through the pipeline, and then at the end we published those resultant captions back to Brightcove. And the net result of this is we got through it's 250,000 minutes in a weekend of subtitling. So you can apply real scale to this. And of course, Brightcove isn't the only source. This could be Google Drive, for instance, or it could be Amazon S3. You can be really, really clever and sophisticated about how you join the dots with this. And you can make it so that it's completely AI. So, no one touches it. Or you can say, well, actually, I want you to wait until someone's hit approve on these before going on to the next step. So there's a lot of flexibility with our automation feature. Another question here, what's next for this technology? Um, there's in terms of natural captions itself, natural captions does evolve. It absolutely does. Um, I think the way it's applied and across different media, it becomes quite interesting. So natural captions is, as it suggests, very much sort of captions focused. Um, but what I'm interested in, what the rest of the team are interested in, is how to carry on making this work across different delivery um, media. So with synthetic voice, for instance, can we can we make it so that we're still hitting those thresholds of comprehension and intelligibility? And no, it won't be something like natural captions, but hopefully it'll be something we can measure and take account of. Another question here, can you handle multiple speakers at one time? Yes, absolutely. The video I just showed you was just a single speaker. Um, but it does absolutely work for multiple speakers. And as in fact, as part of our language profiles, you can specify different speaker delimiters. So if you want to have a double chevron, for instance, or just an end dash introducing different speakers for every change of speaker, we can take account of that. But it's very much built into the technology. One more is, can I use Caption Hub to update old translated content? Yes, absolutely. So in the um, the example I raised earlier, where we had a customer who had everything on Brightcove, you can absolutely use automation to go in and update all of those things. So it's a really powerful way of localizing a back catalog, in a with as much or as little human intervention as you would like to have for that. In fact, one particularly interesting use case, I think, is using a combination of both. So let's say you would like to localize your back catalog. Uh, the way I think would even recommend doing it nowadays would be to point Caption Hub at your repository and localize the whole thing. And using our automation technology, you can even add in a disclaimer saying these captions are AI generated. Once that's done and it's out there, then you can look at your metrics and you can say, well, look, Spanish captions are our most popular ones for these videos, and then you can marshal your human in the loop resources to go through and do more of a cleanup and just make sure that you're happy with things and that you can make what's already a very good machine generated output. You can make sure it's perfect and it's adhering to your style guides and your brand values. So you can have both. You can have practically instantaneous time to market with intelligibility, but then you can go back in and you can do further refinement. That's it in terms of questions. I think it just remains for me to thank you all very much for your time this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are in the world. I hope you've enjoyed this. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.